So, welcome everybody to this webinar on moving to Portugal as an entrepreneur and starting a business here. Very, very excited to have Move In here who are going to talk us through all of the different visa options that are available, tax situation, and everything else that you need to think about if you are considering moving to Portugal as an entrepreneur. This isn't something that I've seen discussed a lot in other webinars. Most of them focus on visas like the digital nomad visa or the D7 or retirement visa. So it's very exciting to have what I think is a very, very detailed presentation on the different options. So before we dive into that, Sonia, would you be able to sort of introduce Move In and let everybody know a little bit about what the team there does?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody. Hello, James, and welcome everyone that's watching us. We at Move In, we partner with Portugalist. We're very proud to do so. Move In is a relocation company, and what we do is we support expats moving to Portugal and Spain. In this particular case, we're going to focus on Portugal. And Move In basically acts on the three stages of relocation, what we call relocation, which is the research, when one is researching about the destination, wants to know more about taxes, about visas, about living in the country. And then we move on to helping everybody with the administrative and all the hurdles of moving to a country. And then we help one settling in when they arrive in Portugal as well. I am here with my colleagues, Natasha and Raquel. They are both lawyers and they are specialized in immigration and business incorporation. They're very knowledgeable about starting startups, about the ecosystem, visas, and so on. And then I have my colleague Danielle, who's an expert in tax and who will dive into the tax considerations when moving to the country and when you're an entrepreneur. So I will probably just move on and let my colleagues start speaking. The first part of the presentation will focus on the different visa types. As you said, we will give more emphasis to the entrepreneurial and to the starting a business visas, although we will touch a little bit on the other ones. And Raquel and Natasha will explain a little bit how they connect.
Perfect. That's great. And I just want to say that we have a Q&A section that you can access in the Zoom software. So if you have a question, it's best to ask it there so that Move In can follow up afterwards with you. But if you want to just say hello and where you're from, the chat area is perfect for that. So I will leave it over to you guys to do the presentation.
Raquel and Natasha, over to you.
Thank you. If you can change the slide, Sonia, please, appreciate it. So hello, everyone, and thank you for taking a little bit of your time also to hear and to understand a little bit how this entrepreneurship can work and how you can come and join us in sunny Portugal. Not particularly today because it's raining a little bit, but nevertheless, we are in the start of the springtime, so any queries and everything, as James will told, you can ask in the QIC question. So I will be approaching a little bit the general visa requirements, which are like standard for all the types of visas that Natasha and myself will address today. So general requirements, you need a passport, which must be valid at least for 3 months when you start taking the process. You will also be requested to have 2 identical passport-sized photos. You need a valid travel insurance. You need a criminal record check, both from Portugal and your country of origin. It's important to notice, and we got asked a lot, imagine that I'm from one country, I live for more than 2 or 3 years in another country, what should I do? If you are the main applicant, you are allowed to choose. So imagine if you are Turkish, you live in UK for the past 5 years, you can choose between using the criminal record check from the UK or your country of origin, which would be in this example from Turkey. You will also be requested proof of financial means, proof of accommodation, and in terms of accommodation, it can be either like a lease, a friend letting you a house, or a property that you decide to acquire in Portugal. Also, personal statement explaining the reasons why you want to apply for the specific type of visa. Sonia? So, in terms of the benefits and amongst the amazing reasons why you should choose Portugal, truth to be told, in terms and look straightly at the visa perspective, the general benefits are family reunification, which means that you can bring at the same time your family members to Portugal, and Portugal welcomes, because we have like a lot of tradition in terms of family members. So you are able to bring from your in-laws, in case you want, your parents and your children. Even if they are more than 18 years old, there are some requirements to be fulfilled, but they are welcome here as well. Also, if you apply for a Portuguese visa, you are free to travel within the Schengen zone, which is great because today you can be having like breakfast in Lisbon and lunch in Madrid without any questions asked. Also, after the 5 years of a legal visa, legal residency permit in Portugal, you are eligible to qualify and request a permanent residency. Apart from that, and also after the 5 years of legal residency in Portugal, you can also start your process to get a Portuguese passport through the citizenship appointments. Also, there are some potential tax benefits. Of course, this all depends on the type of incomes and the type of the country of source and so on. But I'll leave it to my colleague Daniel to explain a little bit about it, okay? So, as James was saying, sorry guys, we will run all the types of visas, and despite that this one is not directly looking into the entrepreneurship path, it can be also interesting because you can have a friend here already with a company and use this as a way to get in Portugal. So the D1 is what we call the work visa. As I was saying, it is mentioned to employed persons. So if you have an offer of a job in Portugal, or if you already have signed any kind of a job position in a Portuguese company, you are welcome and can use that contract or that promise of contract to apply for the D1. All these types of visas that we will be addressing should start in the country of origin or where you are currently residing before the Portuguese consulate there. In terms of the D1 work visa, the financial requirement that you should prove in the promise of work or in the already signed work contract is the amount currently in force of 870 euros, which corresponds to the Portuguese minimum wage. The requirement documents, as I was saying, is either employment contract, so something that you already firmed with a company in Portugal, or a promise of said contract. So both options are eligible for that. In terms of residency rules in Portugal. Currently, the first residency card will be issued for 2 years. So in those 2 years, you can't live outside Portugal for more than 6 consecutive months or 8 non-consecutive. So in the end, average, you need to be at least 16 months in Portugal during the 2 years validity card. The next visa that we will be approaching is the one that everyone, I think, is more interesting in this webinar, apart from the ones that Natasha will address after, which is the D2 visa. The D2 is what we call the self-employment or the entrepreneurs. This can be used for any kind of freelancers, independent worker, or anyone that wants to incorporate any kind of company in Portugal. As I was saying, in the same of the D1 visa, the application starts in the Portuguese consulate. So you never should travel to Portugal and hope to start the process here. So always in the Portuguese consulate in the country of residency or origin. In terms of financial requirement, since you will be self-employing yourself or start a company, you need a proof of income or a bank statement where you prove that you have at least 10,500 euros, because this is the minimum amount that the Portuguese government believes that is enough for you to pay your daily life here in Portugal. In terms of required documents, you can either show to the Portuguese consulate a service provider contract where you will be providing services for a third party. You need tax and social security registration, because everything starts with like a tax ID number that you will use alongside all the entities that you should address. And if you are using the D2 visa through the way of incorporating a Portuguese company, you need to prove that you already incorporated said company in Portugal. In terms of residency rules, they are the same, so max absence of 6 months in a row or 8 non-consecutive. The card is also valid right now for 2 years. And in terms of incorporating a company in Portugal, I can say that it is a quite straightforward process. Its majority can be done online and at a distance, which is great considering that, as I was saying, it starts in the country where you are residing. And with our assistance, you can incorporate it here without even need to be physically in Portugal at this point.
Before moving forward with the different options that we have, I would also like to welcome you all and thank you for this invitation to talk about our country and the opportunities that we have here. So we also have this option of the startup visa. This one is a program to welcome foreign entrepreneurs who want to develop an internship or an innovation project in Portugal. So this program provides for a prior certification process for incubators, so that they can be like entities that host and support these immigrants in the incorporation and installation of technology-based companies. So this startup visa therefore takes place in 2 phases. The first one is related with the certification of the incubator to ensure that these entities are able to welcome third country nationals. And IAPME is responsible for analyzing and selecting and certifying all these applications, as well as monitoring the implementation of the program. And then we have a second phase with the application from the entrepreneur via online platform with this IAPME entity. Whenever this approval comes, the contract with the incubator must be signed. Declaration of acceptance from IAPME will be sent out for immigration purposes, which alongside with the remaining documents will allow the applicant to apply for this type of visa. In terms of financial requirement, we are working on the same basis that Raquel was mentioning. So we are talking about minimum wage salary in Portugal in 12 months, so within 1 year period. And in terms of residency rules, we are always talking about the same thing, unless we are talking about the golden visa option, which will be the last option that we will address here. Moving forward with the D3. So the D3 visa is a highly qualified visa specialized or aimed for highly qualified people. And a highly qualified professional is one that has an activity with specialized with exceptional skills or a recognized qualification for their area of work. So this one implies either an employment contract or a promise of employment contract or a services contract with a Portuguese-based company with that high qualified professional. So it can be through also means of a letter of invitation issued by an educational institution or training institution or for instance, a research center. Except in some specific circumstances of professionals that are particularly needed of workers from third countries in Portugal, the salary of these professionals that are coming through this D3 visa cannot be lower than 3 times the social support index. Also, one thing about the D3 that it's quite different from the other types of visa, and that is applicable for this D3 and for the tech visa that is coming on the next slide, is that applicants are exempt from the residency visa requirement if they have legally entered and remained in national territory, meaning that in this D3 visa and in the tech visa that we will see right now, this application can start directly in Portugal. This tech visa program is in force since 2019, and it seeks to make the granting of a residency visa or permit more effective and more efficient for highly qualified people that are recruited by companies that are on the field of the technology and innovation. So when the qualified activity is not carried out in a company certified in this way, the interest party can always resort to the general regime that we were seeing just now on the next slide. So the difference here is that we will have a mandatory document to be presented together with the general or the common document, as Raquel was mentioning just before, which is a responsibility term issued by the company and certified by IAPMEI. Also, a financial requirement here that it's lower than the other ones, but it's 2.5 times social support index. When we are talking about the D7 visa, we are talking about foreign citizens from third countries who wish to perform religious functions, live in a congregation, or reside in Portugal as a pensioner, or live on their own passive income. So they should apply for this D7 visa in the consulate of the area of residence, and provided that they can prove that they have regular and reliable sources of income that take into account, again, the minimum salary in Portugal, they will be able to apply for this visa and to relocate to Portugal. Required documents are related to, for example, if we are talking about a person that is residing here or wanting to reside based on passive income, we need to have proof of that passive income. If we are talking about rental income, for instance, then we will need to have access to the rental contract that shows this reliable and regular income. Finally, when we are talking about this D8, it is also known as the Portugal Digital Nomad Visa that allows remote workers to establish in Portugal legally while maintaining their current job abroad. So this D8 is both a temporary stay and a residency visa for digital nomads. In the temporary stay option, it allows an applicant to live in Portugal for a period less than 1 year. And then in residence visa option that we are talking about right now, allows one to stay more than 1 year time. So this digital nomad is someone that that is on a work contract that allows to remote work, that allows remote work, or a freelancer that can show service provider contracts that can prove an average monthly income earned in the exercise of this profession in the last 3 months, equivalent to 4 minimum monthly remunerations in Portugal. So when we are talking about digital nomads, we are always talking about not only people that are linked to innovation or technology, all people that can work from abroad in a specific field, but that can prove that they are earning at least these 4 minimum salaries in Portugal.
Finally, and I know that we don't need to address this as much because it's probably one of the most popularized residency program that we have, but we thought it was important also to mention for the cases where someone is starting their process of relocate to Portugal, but they can't yet stay the minimum requirements on the other visas. So the golden visa allows a person, and its correct and legal name is residency by investment, because it requests you to do some sort of investment at front prior to apply for that specific visa. Despite of that, the main difference, I would say, apart from the investment, of course, is the residency rules, which here you are needed or requested to stay at average 7 days a year. Apart from that, all the general benefits that were approached in the beginning regarding all types of residencies are all applied here as well. So in terms of the golden visa, the investment options that you can use, and for example, when it's someone as an entrepreneur, it can combine, if it prefers, if the person prefers, obviously, and it's not sure that will stay at the beginning all the needed requested days, and not to lose the opportunity of starting counting a legal residency to after apply for a permanent residency or even for the passport. So you can choose between job creation with a minimum of 10 work positions. You can invest in a research investment project. You can, if you prefer, to invest by making a capital transfer and purchase at least 500,000 euros in units of participation on on any kind of collective investment, for example, a VC fund or identical, or you can even choose to incorporate your own company, counting that you will create at least a minimum amount of 5 work positions. So sometimes we have clients that start by saying, look, I would like to address, for example, a D2 or a D3 through the means of incorporating a Portuguese company, but I can't yet stay. So sometimes it's advisable to go through the Golden Visa as a way to look at it when you can't stay that much yet in Portugal. As I was saying, all these types of visas that we addressed are residency permits that will allow you after 5 years to apply, as I was saying, for citizenship. Now, I will pass my words to our colleague Daniel that will address the taxation aspects that we spoke about before.
Hello, everyone. So thanks for attending to this webinar. Thanks to my colleagues regarding the visas. Of course, here I will try to simplify in terms of taxes in Portugal, and which might be as well combined with some of those visas that my colleagues have spoke before. So you can, yeah, thank you. So at this moment, for benefit from the new NHR, which is the non-obiter resident program, in order for you to benefit for it, you should have a high qualified activity, and you can combine this non-obiter resident program with one of these 3 possible visas. So the D3, high qualified workers for tech, research and development, startup visa for entrepreneurs, and D7 visa for passive income. So we need, of course, to make sure that you meet all of the criteria, which is a little bit more strict compared to the old regime. But if it's totally possible to get under these visa applications that we are presenting it here. Can you pass? Yeah. In terms of taxes, tax rates for entrepreneurs and also for business owners, the non-obiter resident, it's not applicable. If the non-obiter resident, it's not applicable, you will be under the progressive tax rates that we have. I'm not sure if you all know, but the non-obiter resident program allows you to have a flat 20% tax rate. Without it, you will be under the progressive rates, which can start for the freelancers and or sole traders, starting on 13% and can goes up to 48%. Under the simplified regime, only 75% of your revenue, it will be in fact taxable, and you will be willing as well to pay social security contributions, which is 21.40% on the 70% of gross income. There is as well a first year exempt that you can apply on, so it's not attached in fact to the visa application or even to the non-obiter resident program. So everyone that starts for the first time a freelancing activity in Portugal will be able to have some exemptions, such as the social security for 1 year. The side of the companies, go back, sorry. In the part of the companies, the company has a corporate tax of 20% on the net profits, okay? That is also possible, depending of the size of the company, to have this corporate tax reduced. The dividends in Portugal are paying a 28 flat tax. It's even if it's under the NHR regime, the NHR, it will be not protecting this 28 flat tax on the dividends, okay? So the NHR, it's just for the part of the active income, such as being employed for a company in Portugal or being working for a freelancer, okay? Then the part of the company still has social security contributions that need to be paid as well. So 11% is for the salaries, paid by the employer, and 23.75% is for the employer contribution. We have some alternatives to the non-orbital resident. So if the non-orbital resident, for some reason, it's not applicable for any of you, you can look up to another possibilities. For example, we have the returning program, which is called Programa Regressar, which allow for people that have been registered in Portugal and left Portugal for some reason, and it's possible to have a 50% tax exemption. Just for you to have this information in mind, some of the football players are benefit from this program because they have played in Portugal for some clubs, and later on they have moved to another country, and now they have returning, and it's also possible for them. It's not, of course, just for footballers, okay? But it's an example that I can give. The simplified regime, it's a lower taxable income calculations for freelancers. So you on the first and second year on the simplified regime registered as a freelancer, you will be able to have some deductions. On the first year, for example, it's 50% discount, so it's a good incentive. And on the second year, it's not 50%, but it's 25%. So it's also a possibility that the individuals that wants to set up the freelancing in Portugal can benefit of. Then we have like optimized business structures, for example, setting up a limited company, and it can be a way to get your tax liabilities optimized. Okay, so we can try to find the best approach in order for you to be on the most optimized kind of regime, let's say, in terms of taxes. Okay. There is as well some tax exemptions on the capital gains for long term. Some investments, if you are keep investing, they will be not taxable. Or, for example, for individuals who are investing in crypto assets, let's say, if they invest and hold those crypto assets for longer than 1 year, it's possible to be tax exempt in Portugal. Okay. There is as well some regions that it might be as well beneficial for you to be registering. So we have the Highlands, Madeira and Azores, which is possible to have some benefits, and as well in some rural areas in Portugal, for example, for companies, it might be also a good solution to reduce the possible tax liability here. How the simplified regime works. So for freelancers and sole traders with an annual revenue 100 and 200,000 a year, it's possible to have a fixed percentage which is in fact taxable. So for general services and consulting, 75% it's taxable. So which leaves here 25% deduction. For business set up as a hotel, restaurants, it will be 35% taxable, which means 65% deductions. Or retail and manufacturing, we are speaking about 15% of taxable income. Okay. It's applicable for freelancers, for service providers, hospitality, small retails, and agriculture. It's not applicable for large companies, some partnerships, and high revenue business. Regional tax benefits. Portugal offers some regional tax incentives to attract business. For example, in Madeira, the corporate tax, it's reduced to 14.70%, 11.9% on the first 15,000 on taxable profits. Madeira International Business Center, it's 5% corporate tax until 2027. In Azores, it's pretty much the same. There is here a different percentage for the corporate tax, which is 14%. but it's 11.9% on the first 50,000 of taxable profit. So it's pretty much the same as Madeira. On interior or rural areas, there is some benefits that it's also possible to apply on. For example, reduced corporate tax rates from 20%, as we saw in the last slides, and it's possible to reduce to 12.5% for new business. Investment tax deductions up to 20%, and grants and finance incentives. So it's possible to have some of these benefits if you set up your company, let's say, in the rural areas. Well, we can see here a tax simulation that we have prepared, for example, for you to compare the situation of being registered as an employee for a Portuguese company versus the possibility of you to set up your freelancing activity. So on the first scenario, you can see an employee which is employed via employer record, okay? This will give you the quick overview about what might be the tax applicable on this particular situation. So let's imagine that John has earning a gross salary of 100,000. It will be applicable for Social Security, the 11%. It will be as well taxable base of 89,000 euros from the 100 of the gross salary. The progressive IRS applicable tax rate, it will be up to 48%. And the annual salary, it will be 58,000. So we are speaking about something around 4,850 euros a month. Okay, so this has some advantages, for example, stability and social security benefits, mostly for the future. The disadvantage, as you can see here, it's a higher tax burden. On the second scenario, we have here a freelancer. The freelancer registered on the simplified regime for the same level of income. We are speaking about 100,000 as gross income. Only 70% of that, it will be in fact taxable, so 75,000. There is the Social Security applicable here, which will be 21.40% on the 70% of tax based. So it will be reduced, that portion that it will be taxable for the Social Security. And then it goes as well to the progressive IRS tax brackets up to 48%. It will be compared to the previous situation. It will be reduced here more or less 6,000 euros. So in fact, as a freelancer, at the end of the year, you will have a net annual income of 64,000 on the annually basis, let's say. So which leave us on the monthly income, net income, 5,368 euros. Advantages. It's more income due to lower tax rates, and disadvantages here, it's not paid vacation, or in case of employment, there is no employment benefits. Okay, so there is good things and bad things with these possible routes for individuals to be working in Portugal. So in here we have a quick comparison. And we can see that as a net monthly income, as an employee using employer of records, you will have a net monthly income of 4,849 euros. As a freelancer, it will be 5,368. So the freelancing advantages, it's higher net income, And the disadvantages, it will be mostly the part of the no employment benefits. It will be taken in charge here. For the employee advantage, you can see that more social security protection and more stability, and disadvantage, we can see that higher tax burden due to the social security contributions. So the decision, if John's values job security and benefits, it should select the employer of record route. It's the best choice. If it prioritizes higher income and more flexibility, freelancing, it's also the better idea here. Key takeaways. So the non-orbital resident applies only to highly qualified professionals in strategical sectors. Freelancers benefit from the simplified regime, which is possible to have lower taxable base. Limited structure can optimize taxation for business owners. Regional incentives exist in Madeira, Azores, and rural areas, and choosing between employment and freelancing depends on the security and tax savings. So I don't know if there is some questions. I assume that it will be, so we can maybe move for the Q&A.
Definitely. Before that, Sonia, do you want to just mention a little bit about the consultation calls that Move-In offers?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you to my colleagues. I think I've seen the questions coming up, so I think it's very exciting. There's like lots of questions, but James will manage that, and we'll be answering. Yes, so you can. I mean, there's a QR code if you want to just get into our website. And for this webinar, yeah, we are using. You can use a code Portugalist Move-In 10 to receive 10% on our consultation calls, including the tax consultation calls. Okay, so I hope you all enjoy. And maybe now we can go to the questions because there's lots of them.
Yes. Thank you. I really enjoyed it. I found it was really nice to see an overview of all the different visas and to know what the options would be. And the tax breakdown as well was really, really helpful, just to see that broken down, because it's rare to see that is in so much detail. So thank you for all of that. Let's see what questions we have then. I'm going to run through the main ones from the Q&A, and then we will also see if we can find any from the webinar chat. So if you ask them in the Q&A section, it'll be easier for me to find them. So one person has asked about setting up a consultation with Move-In. So that is, we just mentioned that, and I'll send out more details about that. In terms of the qualifications for interior or rural and the sort of benefits that go with setting up a company there, what makes somewhere rural? Like how far, let's say, out of Lisbon or Porto do you need to go before you're considered in a rural area? I guess that's a legal question, is it, or is that a tax question?
I think both we can
Yeah.
reply to it, but once I have presented, I will reply. So rural, we are speaking about the countryside. Okay, so basically we need to move away from Lisbon and Porto, the big centers, and you need to go more closely to Spain, let's say, in terms of our country. So we need to look at, for example, Castelo Branco. It's one of the regions that it's possible for have these rural tax benefits. There's others, but basically it's moving, let's say, 200 kilometers, maybe a little bit less than that, but from Lisbon and in Porto, you will be able to get some of those tax benefits for sure.
I think that helps, having the idea of moving closer to Spain makes it easier to sort of visualize. I saw a similar question pop up in the chat, which was, if I say I want to register a company in somewhere like Madeira or Castelo Branco, do I have to reside there full time in order to qualify for any of the benefits?
No, just one note. For you to incorporate a company in Portugal, you not even need to be resident in Portugal. So different would be if, as a director, you need to be here actively or not. But even as a director, you can be managing the company from abroad. So you don't need to become resident to start a business in Portugal.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I guess people are wondering if they could, say, set up a company in a rural area and live the high life in Lisbon.
They can. The only thing, and I think Danielle can also comply with that, is to make sure, because of the tax rates differences and benefits from the interior part of Portugal, our less developed regions, to make sure that the tax authorities don't consider this an illegal scheme, in the sense of you just put the headquarter of the company, for example, in Castelo Branco, then you are living in sunny Cascais, and all of the sudden you are providing all the work, all the services of the company through Cascais. If the tax authorities suspect that, you can be subject to an inspection and they will correct your seat. Apart from that, if a company has, for example, different stable establishments working in Portugal, or even different stores, imagine it's you need more spaces and so on, you can divide the work, but be aware that the tax authorities are looking at these situations, okay?
Okay, perfect. A tax question then for Daniel. Can you basically be taxed with two different types of income? Let's say your first income, you qualified for the new NHR 2.0, and then you did some other work on the side that maybe wasn't seen as specialized. Could those be taxed on two different regimes?
Yes, basically, we need to provide, when we are filing the tax returns, we will present the code of matching your high value or high qualified type of work. And if you are doing something else which is not considered as high qualified, you will need as well to have that information on your freelancing setup. So basically with that, you will be in one so let's say on the high qualified, you will be considered for non-orbital resident and benefit from the flat rate of 20%. But for the other part, you will be applicable for the progressive tax rates on that particular type of income. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Let's see what else we have. In terms of age limits, does this apply both to visas and taxes? Is there an upper limit that would prevent people from moving to Portugal?
We don't have age limit, so not for tax implications. So when we are talking about these regimes that Daniel was speaking of, this IFICI, this NHR 2.0, as people like to call it, we don't have an age limit to that. We don't have an age limit also to visas and to residence programs. What we do have is, in terms of family reunion, that if one applicant wants to apply for a family member, and that family member is, for example, a children that is of legal age already, there's some more documentation that needs to be proved that is not requested if we are talking about minors.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Let's see. So, jumping onto the digital nomad visa for a second, the D8, are there tax implications for your employer if you decide you're going to be continue being an employee, but you're going to live in Portugal?
It can depend on the country of origin that we are talking about. There are several agreements between Portugal and different countries in terms of social security contributions. So it needs to be an analysis done case by case.
Okay. And as I saw a similar question on that, if you if you get employed through something like an employer of record, which, as I understand it, is sort of they have a base in Portugal and they are a third party that employs you. Is your income now coming from a Portuguese company, given that it's going through an employer record, or do the authorities understand that really it's coming from somewhere else, stopping in Portugal and then coming to you?
No, it's considered as a Portuguese income, as a salary. So yes.
Okay, so that might determine whether you would apply for the digital nomad visa or say the D1 or D3 then.
Correct.
In terms of, so this is more a legal question then, in terms of absences from the country, is it just the golden visa that really gives you the freedom to be outside the country for many months of the year, or are there other visas with more flexibility?
When we are talking about this period of stay, we always will have a difference. The Golden Visa offers more flexibility in these terms because we have an average of 7 days per year. When we are talking about all the other visa types and residence permits, we are always talking about a relocation process. So it implies that one wants really to live permanently on a permanent basis in Portugal. We do have, for all these other visa types, a rule that is you cannot be away from Portugal for more than 8 non-consecutive months during the validity of the card. But for duly justified reasons, such as professional reasons or health reasons, these can be attended by the immigration office. One can prove the reason for the absence and still get the card to be renewed.
Okay, fantastic. And then jumping back to the digital nomad visa, there's just a question about whether this can be renewed after 1 year or the period of the card.
All the permits can be renewed. So when we are talking about a digital nomad, this residence permit is valid for 2 years and it is renewed for 3. So provided that the applicant still meets all the requirements, and they are the same requirements that the applicant needed to show at the time of that the application was submitted, it is possible to get this renewal on a digital nomad and on all the other residence permits that we have available.
Okay, fantastic. Let's see. There's a question then about the D2 visa, whether an income, and I'm assuming this is for an individual, of around 25 to 30,000 euros would be considered enough to qualify for that.
Yes, it is considered enough because you have the minimum amount that we spoke above. So if you meet the minimum, the sky is the limit, so there is no limit. I would say that 25 to 30K, it's more than enough, and won't raise any questions, counting that you comply with the remaining criteria.
Okay, perfect. Then we have some questions about, I guess it's quite specific about S corporations in the US and how Portugal views them. I don't know, does that make sense to you, Daniel? How does Portugal view the US S corporations? We can get more clarification if needed.
Yes, on my side, I think I need, because to be honest, I don't know.
It's a structure that is very common for US clients. It's they are treated as LLCs for the purposes of taxation. So it's seen from our tax office as someone that is receiving dividends. And therefore, whenever we are talking about tax benefits, there might be exemptions on this type of income.
But just to clarify, we don't have like the equivalent of an S Corp in Portugal. So even the tax framing has raised some queries. And finally, and I think it was last year, that the tax authorities publicly said their perspective on it. So they are considered income in the source of capital, so dividends, like Natasha was mentioning.
So going back then, in Portugal, people are sort of more like a freelancer, where they're an individual or they're a company, whereas the US offers this in-between option as well, which doesn't seem to exist in outside of there, at least in Portugal anyway. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Sorry, yes, Natasha, go ahead.
No, I was saying yes. So we do have about the S corporation, right, James? We don't have this, as Raquel was mentioning, we don't have this type of company or structure in Portugal, like several other structures that they exist in the US and all over the world that doesn't exist in Portugal. We do have transparent entities in Portugal that do have a specific regime, but that according to the tax law, it doesn't apply to S corporations because they don't meet all the requirements to be considered as a transparent entity in Portugal, and therefore it was one of the reasons why right away we were saying it relates more with capital income than business income category.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that. So then there's a question from someone who is considered and certified in the US as a health and wellness coach. And then the question is, would that be considered a highly skilled professional in Portugal? Obviously, you might not know offhand the list of all the professions that would fall into this, but if someone did want to know this, how would they get this information? And if they don't fall into this, what are the downsides? Can they still move to Portugal and benefit from specific tax regimes?
So the highly qualified, there is a list that it determines who is considered for that. But mostly at this moment, we are speaking about directors, people that provides software developing, software or technology, let's say, roles, mostly are considered. So this particular one, I think, I don't remember exactly which the type of job that it's a wellness coach or something like
Wellness coach, yeah.
yes, it will be not considered for high qualified.
So in that instance, the person would be probably looking at applying for a D1 visa if they were an employee, or potentially one of the business visas if they were going to start their own company. And then from a tax point of view, am I right in thinking, Daniel, it would rule them out for, say, the NHR 2.0 or that specific regime, but then all the other things that you mentioned, the simplified regime, the moving to rural areas, all those things are all options.
Yeah, so on this particular type, it's possible for this person benefit, for example, for the simplified regime, okay, because it's not attached, in fact, to the non-obiter resident, okay, so this person can benefit. At the end, she will not benefit of the flat rates of the 20%. It will be taxed on the progressive tax rate, depending, of course, of the level of income that we are talking about.
Okay. And there are a few other questions from people who are in specific industries wondering if they qualify. I would say that the best thing to do would be to get in touch with Move-In. You guys can look it up and check against the list to see what are the options. So take advantage of that consultation. We have a question then about the D7. One of the income sources that was mentioned was the income from rentals. Does this have to be a long-term rental, or if you had short-term rental property that was, bringing in the required amount of income, would that qualify?
That can qualify as well. The main thing to bear in mind is that one needs to prove this type of income. So we just need to prove that it is regular and it is reliable. So if we have this type of income being received for several months, and we do have, for example, tax returns that show that this income is being reported, so it is being declared because it's being received, this can also be an evidence for D7 visa.
Okay, perfect. And then with the D8 or digital nomad visa, and I know you said it depends before, but generally, what is required from a company if someone says, I'm going to move to Portugal and work from there, and the company says that's okay? Does the company need to give any kind of permission or anything to allow that?
This remote work needs to be agreed. It needs to be indicated in the contract. or at least this is from our experience, this is one of the things that we usually recommend people to have. A different situation is the part of the contributions to Social Security. Because whenever someone is living and residing and working in Portugal, contributions should be paid in Portugal. But then we will rely on agreements of Social Security contributions that Portugal has with different countries to understand if the companies will or not need to have a sort of a representative here for paying contributions that the company is obliged to.
Okay, fantastic. And I imagine that the answer is it varies, because if you're applying through the US, it could be different to the UK, to India, etc. Would that be fair?
Sometimes each consulate, and even when we are talking about in the same country, they have different perspectives of the law. So it's very important to work with someone that already has this experience and knows exactly what they will ask. But yes, it does happen.
So each consulate could be like a country within a country.
Yes, absolutely.
We mentioned before doing a criminal backgrounds check and having to do one on your in Portugal as well, even if you haven't lived there. And the question is how you do that. Is that something that Move-In would help with, just sort of guide people through?
Yes, so whenever this type of processes starts, we will be able to help from zero till the residence permit is issued. Regarding the criminal record in Portugal, this is more an authorization for the immigration office to actually check this out than to actually needing to have any sort of document. So it's an authorization to collect. It's a form that needs to be signed, but again, it's part of the services that are provided that we help in getting all this documentation.
Okay, fantastic. Quite a
James,
more complex one. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Now, even if I may add, at Move-In, we assist like from A to Z. So all the things that we mentioned that need to be addressed in the country of residency or origin before the Portuguese consulate, there are some documents that need to prepare upfront. So all of them we comply and assist anyone that wants to move. Okay.
Okay, fantastic. That's really helpful, particularly for those people who are going to do most of the things from their country of residency, sort of finding an apartment, even deciding where to live. It can all be quite complicated. So having someone to guide you through that is really, really helpful. Let's see. I have another question that is a little more complicated. I'm not sure if it's a legal or a tax one, but can a foreign trust open a Portuguese company?
Yes, it can. A foreign trust can open a company. Depends on the type of trust that we are speaking, because like the S corporations and other scheme and structures that exist in the US, there are some kind of trusts that the structure itself couldn't work in Portugal, but they can be a shareholder or the single shareholder to incorporate a company in Portugal. So yes, there's no problem. It's just like the company wouldn't be just like the structure of this specific trust, if that's what we are speaking about. But yes, it can.
Okay, fantastic. We're sort of coming to the end of our questions here, and we've covered a lot of different ones. So I want to thank everybody, first of all, for everything that they shared. Sonia, do you have any sort of parting wisdom for people who are weighing up their move to Portugal and deciding whether they want to go for the D7 or an entrepreneur visa or anything else?
Well, I've seen a lot of. I was looking at the comments in chat, and people have a lot of comments about, if Move-In does help with accountancy for companies that set up in Portugal, and we do set up the companies as well. In terms of the visas, I know sometimes it can be hard to understand which one would be more adequate or more fit to our specific case. And in those situations, I mean, we're all here. Natasha, Raquel, Danielle, in terms of tax as well, and the rest of the team that's not here today. That's what we do. So when you book a consultation with us, we try to understand your specific situation, and then we tailor a plan for you, for your specific needs, because every single person's need is different from the other one. There are sometimes little details on your situation that can make a difference in terms of which visa would apply best or would be more convenient or better in terms of taxes and in terms of settling in Portugal. So my advice to everybody, my advice that I have relocated myself 7 times during my life is, I know it's overwhelming, it's hard, and sometimes the best way to go about is speak to us, speak to specialists, to try to understand what is the best route for you, the best path. And then you can decide whether or not to move on alone or with help, totally up to you. But first of all, try to understand the options. It's the best way, the best advice I can give.
I think so. I think that is really helpful advice. Speak to a specialist, because it may seem like everything is straightforward, but it can really depend on your particular situation. And you deal with people every single day in these situations, so it's much easier for you to look at someone's situation and work out what the best option is, rather than someone trying to figure it out themselves. So I will send out that discount code and a link to your website after this, Sonia, so that people can get in touch if they haven't done already. But thank you once again for everything that you shared, and also to Raquel and Tasha and Daniel. It's been really helpful, and I feel like we've learned a lot.
Thank you, James, and thanks for the opportunity. It's really nice working with you. And thank you to everybody who stayed to watch us and to listen to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, have you back sometime soon. Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.